It's taken police nearly 50 years to crack this case that's haunted investigators and Sharon's family since the day she disappeared. Now, Canadian detectives say the answer to who killed her is buried here at this cemetery in Putnam County.
It's a combination of the most evil element in the human race contacting the most innocent element in the human race, the child.
A combination of evil and innocence that's haunted a city in Canada for 48 years. A case that had gone cold until being resurrected 900 miles away in West Virginia, landing with seasoned Putnam County prosecutor Mark Sorsea.
Some things are worse than death. Losing a child like that, for a family, for a mom to know that your child died that way.
Her name was Sharon Pryor. 48 years ago, the 16-year-old left her home to meet friends at a nearby restaurant. She never made it. 3 days later, on April 1st, 1975, her body was found in a field in Longueuil, Quebec, outside of Montreal. She was 15 miles from where she was kidnapped. She was lying on her back in the snow, her pants removed, and her underwear found hanging from a nearby tree. She'd been restrained with tape. Some of it was stuck in her hair. The 16-year-old had been raped and tied up with a blue men's shirt. An autopsy determined Sharon was strangled and beaten to death. She had a branch clutched in her hand. Sorsea hadn't heard of the case that took place so long ago and so many miles away. That all changed the day he learned Canadian cold case detectives believed her killer was buried not far from where he grew up in Putnam County.
There's a family, guy killed and raped a girl. We're going to help our friends in Canada, and we're going to, be on the team and get it done.
In March, Sorsea petitioned the Putnam County Circuit Court to find out if the man buried in a rural cemetery in Fraser's Bottom could really be the man who brutally killed Sharon. His name was Franklin Maywood Romine. The case that Longueuil police in Canada had built against him, a man that had been dead for 40 years, was remarkable.
What's amazing about the case is we found this guy, and he probably never gave a DNA sample in his life.
In the decades of investigation and countless tips, suspects, and interviews, Canadian detectives say Romine's name had never come up until last year, when a DNA profile that was removed from that blue t-shirt and Sharon's underwear and pants made it possible to target the last name of the suspect.
Then they got the name Romine. So then they just started looking at their criminal records. Well, they see this guy being very active in Canada and Montreal in the 70s. And then they see that he beat and raped a girl in Parkersburg and got convicted of it. Well, then bang, you have a suspect.
Romine had a criminal record that started when he was a child. By 1964, when he was just 18, he'd made his first attempted escape from the West Virginia penitentiary. He'd be in and out of jail before his next escape in 1967. 2 years later, he'd start committing crimes in Canada.
You can track his location by his arrests. He's always getting in trouble.
In 1974, deputies in Wood County said he broke into a home and raped a woman in Parkersburg. He was released on bond and fled to Canada. Sharon Pryor would be raped and killed a year later.
We have a window in his freedom corresponding to the death of the child in Canada.
He'd eventually be extradited back to West Virginia and convicted of the Parkersburg attack. After serving his prison time, he was back in Canada by 1982, the same year he died at the age of 36. How he died remains a mystery. Detectives haven't been able to find a death certificate. His body was returned to his mother in West Virginia, where his family dug his grave, here at the Pine Grove Cemetery.
Matter before the court is the petition of the state of West Virginia in the matter of Franklin Maywood Romine, deceased.
But was the case that started in Canada enough to convince a judge in West Virginia to allow the extraordinary step to exhume his body and prove once and for all that he was the killer. Longueuil Police Detective Eric Rassicot was ready to lay the case on the table and on the record for the first time in hopes Judge Philip Stowers would agree it was the only way to close the case.
We can speculate all day on it, but we won't know the answer until we open the grave to see the remains.
The detective testified for nearly an hour about the facts of the case and about how a 22-year-old woman named Cheryl Roy was nearly abducted at knife point in the same area and around the same time that Sharon would have been walking to that pizzeria.
The suspect told her in English not to scream and to follow in. He also told her when she fights back, you bitch, you're coming with me.
The woman told police that the English-speaking man was white, in his late 20s, about 6'2", 200 pounds, with brown hair, a mustache, and a blue ski coat. The detective said that description matched Romine's at the time, along with a footprint found at the crime scene that would have matched his shoe size. Tire marks were also found in the snow-covered field, and they determined the type of tire would have only been used on 37 models at the time. One of them was a Wrangler, the same type of car Romine had bought from a woman who lived in Sharon's neighborhood.
Very interesting, and I bring your attention to the fact that this address is only 2 blocks away from Sharon's house.
Then the bombshell. There was more damning evidence pointing to Romine, and science backed it up. Both of his brothers had voluntarily given DNA samples to police. The detective said showed their samples from the crime scene were 140 million times more likely to come from their brother than any other random Caucasian. One of the brothers telling police that Romine probably did kill Sharon and claimed Romine had tried to rape his wife while he was away serving in the Marines.
As a result, he and his brother were never close again.
But when it came to digging up their brother's body, the Romine siblings did not agree, writing a letter to the court that they adamantly protested the exhumation of his remains, saying they didn't think it was necessary given there may not be enough preserved DNA to prove anything. They said it would be impossible to exhume his body without disturbing their mothers.
We don't want to cause any prejudice against the Romine family. We only want to ease the pain of the victim's family. And we think that the only way to do that is by opening the casket of Franklin Romine to get his DNA and to confirm, once and for all that he is the killer of Sharon's brother.
The judge agreed.
There's sufficient cause here to order that the body be exhumed, and that information for DNA purposes that needs to be retrieved will be permitted.
Three and a half weeks after that crucial ruling, it was exhumation day. It's the first time the cold case unit from Canada has met the West Virginia team, the group that worked to put an end to their mystery.
This was a big case in the time, and today to be able to go in Virginia, hoping to find a good suspect in this case, and maybe give some answers to the family who's been with us for the last 48 years in this case. It will be a big relief for us, and it will be a major relief for the family.
Sharon's mother, Yvonne, now 85 years old. Her 3 siblings also hopelessly waiting for answers they feared may never come.
Family for sure will be emotional about this because they follow the investigator every time they have a lead on the investigation.
After hours of digging, crews had reached Romine's casket that laid inside a steel vault. Is there a chance that there may not be the answer that you're looking for?
I can't be absolutely sure that we're going to get a DNA profile from this, but I think there's a good likelihood.
Decades of work coming down to these final moments. Detectives climbed into the ground to remove several bones and other evidence that would be flown back to Canada within hours.
And we're going to make some analysis.
But would there be the DNA they desperately need to close the case? Would it be a positive match to Franklin Romine? But most important, would a family get the closure they've sought for nearly 50 painful years?
Our main concern is we want the family to know that we never give up on this investigation. and we're now really close to finally have some answer for them.